Good evening. I'm just preparing myself to speak to my mum shortly. She's nearly 85 and she will be struggling a little bit at the moment because we've got problems with the fact that banks have closed nearby and she has no Wi-Fi. She has no computer skills. She was born in 1938. So having found herself very much as a digitally excluded member of society, it's been really sad to see how that has impacted her, but also very fascinating to think about what the equivalent struggle might be when I'm in my 80s with my children and my grandchildren in those times, not being able to understand how much I am out of touch. And I find it difficult that my mum has no access to things like Facebook, doesn't keep up with photographic records and access to things like FaceTime, WhatsApp, family group chats, email, never actually experienced that. And the reason I'm referring to all this is because I can see how easily excluded she's become, and increasingly so over the last couple of years, especially since our lockdowns. And it's frustrating because although she is a very sociable person, social media has almost overtaken everything else that would normally have been in place for people who are socially chatty, talk over the garden fence, and send letters to one another. We've got high rises of stamp costs, less effective postal service. And we're talking about the UK, but this is in some shape or form is affecting our elderly population. And I know governments are finding themselves importantly urged to plug that gap and have support services. And there's a real business niche for people who maybe become their digital guides and navigators or problem solvers, much as we might have a DIY person or a handy person. Nowadays, they are going to need more and more help with things like software and routers and installations, upgrades, all of that. I know that for me, I will be out of my depth on that side of things technologically. Already, I feel that will be a challenge. And so there is a market niche for people to support our elderly or getting older generations who are not going to be able to stay in touch. And I read a description of the difference between Gen X and Gen Z. So Gen X would be myself, born from 1965 to 1980. So I'm on the front end of those. And the difference between them and those that they parented, the Gen Zs, would be that we as Gen Xs have become aware that there's a world in which we actually did not grow up with, and some experiences that our children are being exposed to are first-time experiences for us at the same time. And this was a bit mind-blowing because I think how much I am sensing the need to keep catching up. And that's going to get increasingly more difficult. I'm blown away by the ability of young people, young students and young graduates to be able to put software in place and integrate systems and just get a message out there systematically. And my challenge has been all of that messaging and that systemization. I'm so grateful for a product and service which I subscribe to called Fast Scalability, which has given me integration of things across the board that is going to help me in this business make fun of faith and with the digital trespassers community, because everything I've built is in there and is automated. So I'm just here really marveling at the fact that we're playing catch up, but we are catching up just as fast as we catch up. There's more and more evolution. We'll never be short of things to learn and change. But thank God for people who are very tech savvy. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to tap into a wide audience. An international one, ultimately, is at our fingertips. And so I'm calling out to people, even as old as my mother, who has found that the world has almost left her behind. Equally, we might feel that we're in that position one day in the next decade or two, and we need to help each other. So, digital trespassers, even if you feel that you're out of your depth, especially because you're in a world in which your children are experiencing things for the first time at the same time that you are. That is a dynamic we've never had before in between the generations. And yeah, we can help each other. We can help the elderly. We can help those who are learning and will never catch up, but at least enjoy some of those accesses to social life through the internet that are available for those who are separated across miles and miles, or because of differences in ability or physical health. You know, there's some great assets that we can tap into. And I'm passionate that that relationship that is being undermined because of lack of confidence about digital things and about computer skills in the older generation, we can equip by straddling those generations and getting that conversation going. So digital trespassers is my passion to support parents or carers or grandparents and those who need more confidence in navigating the metaverse, internet space, and giving them greater parental security in doing that on behalf of their children, who they know they have less and less control over without making conscious choices, without having clear boundaries that are understood within the family dynamic, and without having peer families and peer communities who are also going to support each other in upholding those standards. And I give you, for example, one classroom full of 30 kids. One of them has a very advanced smartphone, and everyone else in the class is then sensing the need to have the same device, to be on the same page, if you like, digitally. Not every parent wants that. And then we have that difference of value that comes through comparison between children, just as we have with designer clothes and that we used to have in the old days with who's got the best bike on the street. It's all the same thing, but more and more intrusive, because a parent needs to make those decisions about whether they purchase a smartphone for their child and when they do, and which apps they will allow to have on it, which ones will be blocked, and whether they even have the technological know-how to be able to set those parameters without them being hacked. So guys, let's be the village that brings up the child in the digital village. Let's be the community that equips one another's parental decisions and respects one another's boundaries for our children. And let's hold back a little bit in preparing our children for this horizon, which is ever expanding, that needs their emotional maturity and their ethical maturity and their spiritual maturity to go into places where, if you like, metaphorically speaking, there are, next to those portals that they are using for safe play, there are nightclubs, there are drug dealers, there are knife crimes, there are addictive games. We are exposing our children to some of those things when we let them in through the door, if we haven't actually considered where that path leads within the metaverse that is open to them. So guys, I just really want us to think about how we support one another so that we're not isolated, so that we're not falling in with a pressure that's unspoken but is very uncomfortable. Let's be the ones that call out what we want for our children and enable them to then have the freedom within that place and one another's parents, as you would if you were stood at the adventure playground with your 5-year-olds and you saw a neighbour's kid straying beyond the gate. You would go for that child, whether it was your child or someone else's, because you could sense that that was going to not work out well for the child if you didn't intervene. So we need to watch one another's backs and we need to look out for our kids. And so my mum is 85, as I said, nearly next October. This is a completely different world from the one that she grew up in. And let's not knock the one we're in. It's very volatile, it's very changeable. We need each other more than ever. We cannot afford to be independent of each other. We cannot afford to be individualistic in today's society. We need one another. We need real human support. So Digital Trespassers is out there for you to help navigate this. Join me at makefunoffaith.com/join, and you will find there, you'll sign up on the landing page for Digital Trespassers. And I look forward to seeing you inside for some roundtable chats about how we serve our children and help them to become ambassadors for good, healthy relationships and outlooks and mindsets in the digital world.